Welcome back, everybody, to the United Jewish Podcast, where we have three different people as co-hosts, but we're all the same goddamn thing, Jewish. We're here today, me, Ed, in Toronto, with my two co-hosts, Ben Hariri and Sammy Schiff, and we got our first guest on the United Jewish Podcast so far. Ben, you want to introduce him, or Sammy, either one? Go for it.
Go for it, Sammy.
Okay, so our first guest happens to be a close friend of mine. Coming all the way from Colorado, it's Yehuda HaLevi.
Well, thank you guys. I'm happy to be on. And Sammy's told me quite a bit about your vision for the podcast, and glad we got to do this.
Yeah, man, we're glad to have you. Thank you so much for coming. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Like you know, what's your like Jewish college experience, because you're a college student.
Sure. Well, I'll give you some of my personal background that like, leads up to my college experience as well. So I grew up in Boston, conservative Jew. My dad was the rabbi of our local synagogue. Very simple Jewish life in the suburbs on the North Shore of Boston. And then at age 13, my family packed up and we moved to Israel, made Aliyah. We moved not to central Israel where all the American Jews tend to go. We went up north to a small in the northern Galil. People there don't speak a lick of English, and you're really immersed in the culture. So that was my, big awakening as an Israeli when I became immersed in the culture there, and really changed my whole perspective on the world and Judaism and its context within the Israeli picture. And then fast forward, I went to college at CU Boulder, get involved in the Jewish community here. And then October 7th hits and really awakened a new purpose a calling that I had to stand up for my community and my people here, for my own experiences.
That's amazing.
Amazing. So, in Israel, did it feel awkward being an American living in a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of Americans who moved to Israel?
Yeah, it definitely did. And, I've talked about this a lot with people that I'm friends with and I'm close with. And I feel that when we talk about Israel, sometimes it's a complicated relationship. Aside from the conflict itself, um, it's a place where different cultures clash, and there's so many, identities coming together, and sometimes, it comes with its own struggles because we have to, look to constantly improve this place that we love so much. And one thing that I struggled with when I was there was feeling accepted as an outsider, as an American. Um, and it's a really harsh culture in that sense at some points. And people kind of wear their heart on their sleeve, but they also have kind of this harder shell. And as an American coming from, suburbs of Boston can be a rude awakening at points.
Mhm.
Do you ever find yourself wanting to move back to Boston while you're in Israel?
Yeah, I miss my home in America, as much as Israel has become a home now, at the time, 13, I didn't really understand like, why are we here? And I've since grown to appreciate the country and all of its beauties and complexities, but I definitely, you know, felt torn between my two homes at some point.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
I want to ask, how good is your Hebrew now? Are you fluent?
אחי, אני יכול לדבר. It's a beautiful gift.
Wow.
Perfect.
Uh, I I learned quickly because think like learning biology and chemistry and geometry in an Israeli classroom, but suddenly they're teaching you how to calculate these different equations in Hebrew. So you learn quick. The people around you speak really quickly, and you have to pick it up. One thing that someone told me when I first moved there is they're like, I know it's difficult, but one day you'll be hearing someone talk and you'll be in conversation, and without even trying, you'll understand it. It'll click. And I was like, yeah, yeah, we'll see. And one day it happened. you sort of adapt, and I ended up speaking. No, I haven't lost it, thank God.
It's like, did you like notice the day it happened and you were like, holy crap, or like was it something like that? It just happened over time.
Yeah, I have like a vivid memory of being with two friends, and I remembered that conversation. I'm like, wow, like, I felt very accomplished at 13, learning a new language.
Yeah. It's also cool how you were saying how like kind of like the Israeli people, it's like, I mean, it's not that one is like better or worse, obviously. Like both are great, but it's like it's funny because there definitely is a culture shock being an American living in Israel. Because I did a summer internship in Tel Aviv at one point, and they were basically for that program, they were telling all the American kids how like people in Israel, they're just brutally honest, they don't have a filter. So like if they say something, they're not trying to be disres if they're like critiquing you on something in work, they're not being disrespectful. They're literally just calling it how it is, you know?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword in some ways, and in many ways, it's preferred to the way that we interact in America. In America, people will smooth things over when they talk to you because they don't want to offend you, and in many ways, they won't be as honest, and sometimes we need honesty, and Israelis aren't afraid to be honest, and sometimes it stings, but in other times, they just kind of cut through the nonsense and tell you how it is. You know who's your friend and who's not. In America, there's more layers to that, so there's trade-offs for sure.
100%. So you lived in Israel. How long did you say you lived in Israel again?
3 years.
3 years. And then after those 3 years, that's when you came to college in America, or
So I moved first to Denver when I was 16 and ended up going to school Boulder when I was 18, where I've been for the last almost 4 years at this point.
wow.
What made your family decide to move back to them states and why Denver?
Denver was the easier decision because we had a lot of family here. We still do. My dad's side of the family is here. Ultimately, we needed to move back because, like I said, and I've come to understand this now, our time living in Israel was full of many beautiful experiences, but you also feel the weight of moving to a place that's unfamiliar. We don't have any family there. Our whole support system was here. My younger siblings, they have some learning issues as well, and they weren't able to learn English or Hebrew properly. So on my end as well, I didn't feel like I fit in at the time. Although now I go to Israel and I feel like I'm just with my bigger family. So again, I've learned to um, just changed my perspective and relationship with Israel as I've grown older. And now, the very thing that was once a difficult experience is the root of my passion today and what I do on my campus. So interesting how Hashem can put you in those situations for specific reasons.
Heavy does. And are you still in touch with your friends that you made in Israel?
Definitely. One of my friends, he became Haredi, ultra Orthodox, and which I didn't expect from him. He was a staunch atheist when we were friends in ninth grade. Ended up enlisting in the IDF in a Haredi unit and has been um, serving in Gaza, protecting Israelis since the war began. I'm very proud of him. Another friend of mine just finished his time in the military, and we talk very often, and still really cherish those friendships.
That's awesome. I feel like the Haredi soldiers are honestly the coolest ones. Like this might be a little bit of a hot take, but it's like literally like seeing someone with the long peyote all the way down to like their shoulders and like carrying an M16. It's something about it that screams Israel to me. I don't know why. It's amazing.
No, it does. It does. And he told me like they all bring their film with them. They all find their times to daven during the day. And I
Beautiful.
don't know, to me, it adds that layer of faith to their service. And I think they really much need that to carry them through. Some of them leaving, their families who would rather have them maybe be learning all day, and they feel called to do this and kind of go against the grain, especially in the, you know, sometimes mess of what is politics in Israel of service and who serves and who doesn't. No, I really respect it.
Mhm. 100%. God bless him. Um, yeah, so moving back to Denver, so it's like you moved to Denver at 16, you started college there at CU Boulder. Like, what was that like starting there? Like, especially compared to pretty much living in Israel for a solid chunk of your life and then going to secular college when you hit 18.
I for the longest time thought I'd be drafting at 18 because assuming I stayed in Israel, that would have been my plan. And here I am, TU Boulder, um, the picture perfect college town in America where you go and you join a fraternity and you get your studies done and you have a good time and skiing and whatnot. And it's great. But it did take me some time to find my place within all of that because again, I felt like I had a different worldview than people who had kind of lived in America their whole lives. And um, took me a while to kind of find my footing and started going to the Chabad here and started getting more involved, joined a Jewish fraternity, and slowly, I found my place and kind of all, like I said, it kind of exploded on campus on October 7th and also within me because seeing everything going on when the war began really solidified what I felt my purpose was here. And yeah, maybe I wasn't serving in Israel, but maybe there were ways I could do that abroad and be an advocate.
And I wanted to ask something a little bit more specific because me personally, I graduated from undergrad in 2021. So my experience was similar. I don't know if it's different, but it's probably similar and a little bit different to yours because I feel like US college campuses, there was an entirely different vibe on campus before and after October 7th because there is this era of what I felt was a simmering going on from like around 2011 to like 2024 or like 2023. And then in 2023 it kind of exploded with October 7th. So do you have an idea or can you tell me if the feeling on campus was different before October 7th and then it changed or was it like simmering?
I never really noticed any anti-Israel sentiment on campus. Now, if I had taken specific courses with professors who had bias or paid more attention to some of the student organizations that may have been more anti-Israel, yeah, I probably would have noticed that simmering. But it wasn't in your face. The average Jewish student wasn't aware that it was even going on. Um, I think it was an awakening for a lot of people in some of the ways that it was for me, where we were unaware how much it could go from a simmering to, like I said, more of like an explosion. And that's the power of social movement that it became, the anti-Israel initiatives across college campuses, contagious and definitely spread to our campus, and we noticed it so much more following.
And another follow-up is do you see most Jews on your campus specifically as coming together after October 7th? Was the community stronger or was it like the same but more supportive?
No, it was far stronger. It was really something special to witness. Um, for something so terrible to be happening across the world, and especially in Israel, it it had an equal and opposite effect of beauty and what it brought out in individual people, where people were coming together and people were supporting one another. We had vigils on campus, we had fundraising initiatives, we had marches for Israel, and so many more things, celebrations of our people, of our faith. And that's something I'll never forget. And I think for everyone else who was part of it, it was something that they'll cherish because in a time where we're collectively hurting, we were also collectively connecting and coming together.
And was there, last question, in relation to this, was there a specific moment that you remember where like you were most proud of?
There were the big moments where we had, big demonstrations and coming together moments, and I feel like I did find my voice in a way, and it felt good. But it was also in the really small moments that I was impacted. I'll share a few of those real quick. Um, there was one moment where, so I decided after October 7th, I was becoming a little bit more observant and connecting more, and I started wearing my yarmulke around campus, and I wasn't really scared. I was kind of rooted in the idea that I'll be more protected, if anything, through this, defiant act and this act of faith. And I was at a party one night and wasn't really expecting to, see anyone I knew there. I was with a friend. We were just stopping in and out, and a kid came up to me and he said to me, he said, "Man, are you Jewish?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "I'm seeing everything that's going on and everything that's happening out in the world, and I feel lost and I feel scared. I know I'm Jewish, but I've never practiced and I've never had any Jewish friends, and my family doesn't talk about it, and I don't know where to go and what to do." And I was able to, get his number, and he started coming to, cook challah at Chabad before Shabbat dinners, and really reignited something within him that he didn't know he was looking for. And to me, that's the beauty in what was happening. Another example is, again, I was walking on campus, and um, a girl that I don't really know too well, um, comes running up to me, and she hugs me, and I'm like shocked, and she's crying, and I'm like, "What's wrong? What's going on?" And she said she's like my friend. She was on an army base on October 7th. We haven't heard from her. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who to talk to. Um, and it's in those moments where, not the big demonstrations, but the moments where you can be there for someone like that, where you can serve in that way. Like I said, being of service towards our people in a different kind of way. That was the most um, just joy filled for me.
So the small things can be the most beautiful sometimes, literally. And it was so cool how you had those interactions with those, I mean, students that were like a little bit off the path for a bit and you helped bring them back. I'm also kind of wondering, it's like, did you have interactions with anyone like on the other side of things? Did you have interactions with anyone that was kind of like, in the middle of everything and not sure what was going on, or like Chas v'shalom, like anyone from the people protesting at all? Did you have any interactions with those people?
Yeah, I've had a few. Um, some have been pretty negative. There was an instance where we were raising money for the IDF around our like Greek Row area where we have a bunch of shops and restaurants, and a man came up to our table and threatened to kill a bunch of the people that were there, and through a heated argument, and it didn't really end well. Just a screaming match. But I've also had some more positive interactions, where I had a run-in with one of the girls from our pro-Palestine organizations here, and this was after we decided to go to one of their events because we were pretty upset that they were having this particular speaker come, but we decided, you know what, we're not just going to sit by. We're going to actually go to it, so that we
Do you
can.
remember what speaker it was?
Uh, it was Linda Sarsour. He came to our campus.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we said, in the academic spirit, we're going to go and hopefully be able to learn how we can critique what she's saying. And that's what you do on a college campus, free speech.
Mhm.
And although it was a pretty awful event, there was a very positive interaction after with one of their members when she was just like, "I know you guys don't agree with what went on in here, but she kind of recognized the humanity in the fact that we showed up for the purpose of disagreement. And that was, kind of, I guess, a silver lining to some of the more negative interactions that I've had. But it was something that I remember, nevertheless.
So
So
do you guys,
yeah, go ahead.
so do you guys have like encampments or like protests or hate crimes going on last year?
We had no encampments, thank God, because the school would have shut down graduation, and I don't think anyone wanted that. But this Halloween, someone went through campus. It might have been a person or two people, never caught, but and spray painted these very terrible things all over campus. Um, Things against Jewish people, against Israel, and I mean, it took a lot of money and resources to remove the graffiti from every building in sight. I mean, it was everywhere, and there were pictures of it everywhere, and it wasn't a good look for the school. But no encampments. We get some protests, although they've kind of lost some momentum as some of these social trends do.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention was the fact that that you're there at the event, going back to the Linda Sarsour event. You're just there just watching the event. Oftentimes, like I would do similar things where I would go to like events from the other side and just watch and see what it was like. But it's a very stark contrast because I don't see your SSI or other Jewish groups on campus going and disrupting or making a fuss or trying to prevent or like putting people what I see as guys do and what I appreciate is like this is a very peaceful movement of people just going and watching the events, not trying to shut it down, not trying to start fights. Whereas it's a very stark contrast with the other side that tries to actively stop events by threatening people, by intimidating people, by, making people feel unsafe. It's not a good look. So what you're doing is really beneficial to your reputation personally, because on a lot of college campuses, reputation is everything, especially for student clubs and organizations.
It is, and when they stood up in applause, there was a whole row of us that remained seated, and that that was what we decided to do. And instead of disrupt the event itself, like we went for the purpose of showing that we're not afraid to show up here. We don't like it, but we're going to show up. We haven't had anyone interrupting our events, but we have had people arrested and removed from school grounds for interrupting things like our engineering career fair, which had a lot of like military industrial companies to recruit students. People violated university policy, and in turn, anti-Israel student groups here got put in bad standing with the university. And that's just how things work. I mean, you need to understand that you have free speech, but you'll also, face the consequences if you violate the law or university policy.
Yeah, and it's also like I don't know if you guys saw this, but it's like wasn't there recently like a college campus where it's like
Mhm.
there was a Israel history class and a bunch of protest.
Columbia, yeah.
Colombia.
Oh, oh, of course it was Columbia. Okay, yeah, it was it was so ridiculous. It's like I can't believe they weren't. It's always it's like they're always the ones that make a ruckus, you know?
And
Like
it's always saying the
oh,
stupidest thing. In the line, at least from the video, I remember it saying they're being racist to our creativity when they're asked not to play drums in the classroom.
yeah, it's a lot. It's like they're always making such a ruckus, and I don't think Jewish people have made a real ruckus since the Romans took us out of Israel, like in BC era. So yeah, that's a whole thing. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Another th yeah.
sorry,
The
sorry.
thing about yeah. Going along that, like oftentimes with like the incident that Eden and Sam were referencing happened at Columbia at an Israel history class where three masked people came in and basically disrupted the event, issuing out flyers of propaganda, saying their whole movement. I'm not sure which. They're probably SJP, which is Students for Justice in Palestine. But what I do see is a lot of them wearing masks at these events, whether it be the N95 COVID masks or the Arab Palestinian keffiyehs on their faces too. But I also wanted to ask, it's
Actually,
very hard to
interesting.
tell.
It's actually interesting because New York has a mask. Now there's not a lot of masks anymore.
That's funny because when I was in New York, I saw a good amount of people on the subways with keffiyehs. Just it was that was interesting. But yeah, what I wanted to ask was they do this on purpose to try to hide their identities, obviously. But I wanted to ask you, Huda, in your experience, can you tell if any of these people are students or are they outside agitators?
So a lot of them are students. Most of them here are students. At the beginning, there was a lot more faculty present. There's a lot of students who are also like RAs for different dorms. So students have to answer to them, but they also organize these protests. I know CU Denver had an encampment on one of their campuses, and that was more just agitators, paid protesters, community members. We actually went down there and saw it. It was quite the sight. And again, city didn't do anything about it. But no, on our campus, from what I've seen, it's been mostly students.
Interesting. Are there any specific organizations that are funneling money to your university? Like, for example, on some of the encampments, they were Amnesty International was put a job listing where they offered $30 an hour for people to be at the encampments. Do you know any organizations that are directly funding any groups on your campus?
No, and I think we're lucky in the sense that it is just a student-led initiative, which in some ways makes it more, I mean, I don't want to say like respectable, but the fact that students are just taking their own time and doing what they believe, which I don't agree with whatsoever, versus other campuses who, I mean, people are being paid to come and disrupt and cause chaos and spew anti-Israel nonsense. I mean, I mean, to be a grown adult and come into an environment like that with students, it's just embarrassing at this point, and our campus really hasn't had that, and that's why um, we've been very grateful to be at CU Boulder because it hasn't been as bad as some of the other campuses that you're seeing in the news.
100%.
Yeah, would you say just the last thing about this, would you say that the connection you say that the connection of your school, which it's been much more has been much more positive rather than the other schools because there hasn't been any paid organizations bringing in outside agitators.
Yeah, it has. But I also think there's other reasons for it, and one of which is people are here for the college experience. I mean, it's Boulder. There's a huge Greek life presence. Um, there's a bunch of programs at our school that people come here specifically for, and they're all very purpose-oriented people on our campus who are, they know why they're here, and a lot of them aren't interested in nonsense. And the way I look at it is there's probably 10% of the people on this campus that are anti-Israel, 10% that are vocally pro-Israel. And there's 80% that just could not care less because they're interested in um, their next exam or what party is going on this weekend or what have it.
What frat they're
And
rushing.
in some ways, that's a blessing because they are being fulfilled by their social lives and their academic lives, and they don't need to look for the next cause to go jump on. And it also gives us more room to educate because when people don't know and don't understand what's going on, you can say, hey, let's have a conversation. They're not set in their ways of firmly believing something. Not that all of them are so neutral, but definitely leaves more room for conversation.
100%. And Ben, I gotta say, I feel like that's the like asking if like other people like outside of like the college are like coming in to protest. I feel like that's the LA and us talking, you know? Because
Yeah, yeah,
It happens in the
like
East Coast too. It happened in the East
yeah,
Coast.
no, I'm saying it's like because I mean, I'm going to use NBA terminology here. The big market cities, like LA, New York, Florida. I mean, maybe not Florida, but LA, New York, it's like you for sure have like people that are like coming in from off like campus to like engage in these protests, especially UCLA, which was like literally insane. Because it's like even on like our side, we had people that weren't enrolled in UCLA, coming to support the Jewish students of UCLA also. Because it's such a big campus and
yeah.
it was such a big protest going on that it's like pretty much everyone got involved. It was insane.
But they
But
won't be
Yeah.
paid.
yeah, like Yehuda was saying though, like in the college cities like Boulder, Colorado, like it's pretty much all students there, you know? So you don't see a lot of people coming in from off campus to engage in this stuff because why would they?
Yeah. So I'd like to talk about the positives now.
Yeah.
So what organizations, Jewish organizations, do you have on campus?
Well, real quick, I'll answer that. I want to just touch on Ed, what you said. Just getting your guys' perspective on what LA and maybe New York was like. Another positive here as well is that because so many of the schools on the coast were pretty hostile, we saw a lot more Jewish and Israeli students come into Boulder this year. The freshman class in particular, and people who've transferred, you know, a giant influx of Jewish students. Our Shabbat dinners, so I'm very much involved in Chabad. Our Shabbat dinners went from, maybe 150 on a very good week to 250 every Shabbat, where there's no open chairs. I mean, it's a blessing, too many students for Shabbat dinner is not a bad thing. And um, I have thought so long with others as well about how could this be? And I think people who had their hearts set on LA said, well,
Yeah.
I still like, the mountains or the beach, and I want something that's kind of that West Coast vibe. Maybe I'll go to Boulder. Or I don't want to go, to any of the Ivies now, but there's a good program over there in Boulder. I think that's really helped us, and a lot of the Jewish students have decided to go here instead of, your UCLA.
100%. And I was I was told before this podcast not to get too political, but I could have given countless reasons why everyone's running away from Los Angeles, but we won't go into that.
That was
It's
happening before the war. That was happening before.
no, I'm saying in general, like
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
wild, but well, it's like yeah, it's fine. We don't have to get into that. But I mean, yeah, like getting back into the positives. So like you you ran your SSI chapter like at college. And that one chapter of the year like in its first year being made. So like I mean before we get into like all that and what was that like could you like tell us for the people who don't know because I went to Yeshiva University. I have no idea what things like SSI are. Could you like I mean for the people who don't know, could you like go into a little bit of detail about what that is?
Yeah, so our whole movement here didn't even start off as SSI. We started in a student-led movement that was a group chat called Buffs Believe. We're the Colorado Buffaloes, the Buffs, and our whole, premise was like emunah, belief, and that's how we wanted to base our advocacy. It was like we're rooted in our beliefs, and that's what's gonna, drive us. And we did amazing work. Myself surrounded by really, really strong young Jewish leaders who had my back every step of the way, and I had theirs. And at some point, we did also realize, okay, we're not in crisis mode anymore. It was, winter break after October 7th and that whole semester here. And we had gotten in touch with SSI. Um, Dave Phillips, he now works for the national team. He officially registered and started our chapter here. And me and all the other leaders of that group Buffs Believe kind of merged and we started our SSI and we started going. And it was slow at first. Last spring semester, our first semester, we, we were growing very slowly and we had some good events. But again, when things started really to get going in the fall, when we had an influx of Jewish and Israeli students, we saw our group chat boom to about 250 students from about 75, which we initially had going into that summer. And it was incredible. And we were able to host a lot of events. We had a really successful October 7th event. We did a 9/11 coalition event where we had the fire department and police department come, and we had a very beautiful ceremony showing Israel's alliance with the U.S. against terror. And we've had many what we call Israel Fest. It's Israel festivals that we host, and we raise money and we
Awesome.
provide, Israeli food, beverages, music, hookah lounge, the whole deal. And it's just a cultural experience. And that's been our, you know, on the event side of things, it's been really, all because of the people here, because of SSI, Chabad, Hillel, and all the other strong, Jewish leaders that we have on campus.
So, but how is it like? What was it like hearing your chapter being called as chapter of the year?
Um, so I didn't realize that there was an award ceremony at the national convention until heard something about it. And at first, you kind of have imposter syndrome. It's like, us, like, like what, how did we, deserve such an award? But when we got called up, I realized that you don't have to be the longest standing chapter um, to be recognized for your work. And I really was grateful because as much as the work is meaningful, it's also it adds another layer of meaning to be surrounded by people who are doing the same work as you on a national and international level. And to be recognized in such a way, I felt supported by other emissaries of Israel advocacy worldwide. And it was really, a strengthening feeling, and it kind of gave us the momentum we needed to go into this semester as well.
Yeah. And on that note, I had a Zoom meeting with Elon. Elon is the SSI national president. He
Long
founded
time.
SSI. Yeah. And he founded
Well,
SSI like when was it? What year did he found it? Like 2012?
Yes.
Yeah. So we had a Zoom meeting with him around November 2023, and he was telling us, I think your school was included. He said almost 40 new SSI chapters had applied to for their schools, whether it be high school, undergrad, grad schools. He had the highest influx of SSI applications for chapters since SSI was founded. So that in itself, hearing about that was from straight from him was incredible, and your school was probably part of that.
yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. People are far more motivated in these times of, I mean, back then times of crisis. Now we can be a little bit more proactive, and but people are, look, it's contagious. People feel the need to fight for their cause, and SSI has given us at least a platform to do so, even though we were doing it. Uh, it's another layer of support. And like I said, we have Chabad and we have Hillel and we have that piece that's really been a backbone to us as well. So SSI has just given another layer of help. Actually, we had our club fair today, so
Nice,
I'm
nice.
up for the part, you know?
Yeah. And another question I had for you is like for all the because me growing up I knew what Chabad was, I kind of knew what Hillel was both going into college, but a lot of the students like some of them that you describe in your story is that they have no massive Jewish life growing up until college. Could you explain to maybe some people that don't know what is the difference between Chabad and Hillel?
Yeah, so Hillel is usually more secular of an organization, of a community. They're usually run by a group of people who are in their late 20s, early 30s. And our Hillel, we actually partnered Chabad and Hillel for Birthright this summer, which was great. And so SSI works with both Chabad and Hillel. Our Chabad in general and Chabad's across the country, especially because on campus, they're run by a rabbi and a rebbitzin, rabbi's wife, and it's definitely more mirroring the Orthodox world, and a lot of the courses and events that are tied into Chabad are, mirroring religious practice and teaching, and the different people connect to different ways. I personally um, have found more of my observant lifestyle and connection through my time at Chabad. The rabbi and I hear Rabbi Wilhelm, um, really close. He's a strong mentor of mine, and he's been a mentor of mine throughout all this work on campus since the war began, and been really instrumental in my growth and the growth of our community.
That's amazing. Yeah, me growing up, I've been with Chabad since Camp Gun Israel, so I gravitated more towards Chabad when I was in undergrad as well. I was on the Chabad board and SSI board too, and those they worked really well together. And does your school have a Chabad house and a Hillel house?
Yeah, we do. Our Chabad house is pretty big and still not big enough. Um, which, God willing, it won't be big enough because there'll be more Jewish students and we'll need to expand. But our Hillel also has like a center. It's on the other side of our campus. So yeah, they both just kind of function independently.
Right? Yeah, good. Yeah, yeah. My your Chabad should probably buy up one of those abandoned frat houses. That's what my
I
Chabad did.
know.
It'd be a big move. So, I mean, my question now, because it's like, Yehuda, you said, I'm sorry, what year are you in college right
I'm a
now?
senior. I'm a
You're a
senior.
senior.
Yeah.
So, you're in your last semester right now. So, last semester, head of SSI, that was just chapter of the year. You're kind of the big man on campus, Jew-wise. I mean, what's the plan for the rest of the semester? What you got going on? What you got cooking?
It's funny because some people, like friends of mine, uh, to mess with me sometimes, they refer to me as Big Jew on campus. Uh,
I love
it's
that.
funny. I mean, I'm I wear my yarmulke, and you know now there's more guys too that are wearing their yarmulke and the tzitzit in
I
public, and
do
it's
that.
very
I have people saying we should take a hair and clone you because we don't know what's going to happen when you leave Drexel this year.
yeah. I'm thinking about what's next, and um, as I figure out my path, I know that first of all, I have to follow my heart and follow my passion, and part of that is standing up for Israel and spreading the light of Judaism as well. My goal for this last semester has just been to leave a legacy, and not so much a personal legacy, but more so a lasting um, impact, and leave my campus and my community better than when I had found it. And I say that to myself every morning because I wholeheartedly believe that in following purpose and following passion, the path forward will make itself clear. And I know that as I, continue to find my own direction, I can only be done by just like listening to my heart. So part of what I'm doing as a psychology student, not wanting to go the traditional path, having learned probably more more from outside my with this work than psych classes, at least about people and leadership, is I just launched my podcast. Um, First episode's coming out tomorrow. It's called Shells and Shadows.
Go.
Shells coming from the concept of klipa and peeling back the outer shells that hide the inner light of each of us as people. And shadows coming from the idea from more of Jungian psychology, where we all have a shadow side to the self that we often don't allow to be seen by the world. And we hide it and we hide it away. And being able to integrate parts of ourselves that maybe scare us, we don't like, can bring us an immense koach, immense power. And so I have an amazing, group of friends and mentors that have strengthened me. And so I want to have these real conversations with them so that maybe I can influence one or two more people and inspire them through, yeah, through real conversations. That's my next step. Career-wise, we'll see where it takes me, but I hope to take it as far as it'll let me.
And are you involved in any organizations for Israel outside college, like a Stand With Us or that type of thing?
Well, I recently got involved with Israel Education Project, IUP. Sammy, who founded it, reached out to me. So I've been involved with them. Besides SSI, not really. I've been involved with JNF, and I have a lot of really strong connections there with people who've kind of been, again, mentors for me. But yeah, that about sums that up.
Yeah.
So, moving on to kind of the next segment of our podcast, since the last episode we recorded, aka the first one, it's currently January 22nd right now. So there have been a bunch of current events that like took place between those two episodes. Like, for example, first things first, I mean, the hostage deal took place. I mean, what do we all think about that?
We can get Yehuda first since he's the guest.
Yeah, Pablo.
Um, I I think so. Bear with me because I have a lot of complex thoughts that I'm still working through on it. Um, I think it is absolutely terrible that we are giving them murderers of our own people in return. But I in no way feel that it's bad, and I haven't been able to feel anything other than joy for the fact that people are coming home and our people are returning to their families. And so while I, logically don't think it's a great idea, I just feel so much happiness and so much joy, especially seeing the first three women that return come home, that I can't, I don't have the capacity to, talk and deal with the morality of is this right, is it wrong, the politics of it, because I'm very much just overwhelmed with the feeling of like our prayers did something.
Yeah, I agree. I have mixed feelings. Like, part of me is like, fine, but we've been asking for it. We've been chanting for 15, almost 16 months, bring them home. And we actually found a way to bring them home. I actually came today from hearing a soldier speak, and someone asked them the same question. He's like, again, he has mixed feelings. Like, they risked their lives, and they feel like it's for nothing. But also, they also felt like they couldn't find where they were. So it's like the only way is to get them home. To bring them home is but through a deal.
Mhm.
And he feel like Israel has a plan for everything. We don't know the plan, but Israel has a plan for everything. So I want to see where it goes. I'm trying to stay optimistic, but I have a feeling I have a feeling that something bad's gonna happen. Remember, the last hostage deal we had years ago, Sinwar was one of the ones who was traded.
Ben, you want to say something before I?
No, I'll go last. No, I don't want to hear yours.
All right. I mean, listen, I mean, when the deal happened, I'm certain 99% of Jews had that same conflicted feeling where everyone felt on one hand, oh, like, it's a shame we're giving away so many terrorists. We're kind of making the same mistake again. But then on the other hand, our people are finally coming home. We're making a step toward that. So I feel like 99% of Jews are dealing with that confliction in their head, and the only thing we should feel is go the route of positivity always, because that's who we are as people. The reason I say 99%, by the way, is because I know 1% of Jews is JVP, and they're saying they should have got more terrorists. But that's
It was actually crazy. The Philly schools had a protest last week protesting the ceasefire that they were demanding. They're really protesting the ceasefire that they were demanding in the previous protests. And chain for Intifada.
Not surprised. Not surprised at all.
it's like I haven't seen anyone protesting the ceasefire itself, but I have seen a lot of these idiots saying like, "Oh, we won." How do
What?
you?
Like, yeah.
They've been
And yeah,
genocide and protesting the whole thing, calling it inhumane for the past like what, year and a half,
yeah,
a little more than
They
year.
won.
They've been saying
yeah,
all this stuff, and then out of nowhere, oh, we won. What'd you win? What? This is crazy. It's just
yeah.
right.
And yeah, there's no winners in war. Like I was a history major. I studied very specifically military history. So when I see the modern conflicts going around, started with Ukraine and now hit close to home with Israel, but the fact that these people believe that they've won something by starting a war and having leading to the deaths of th tens of thousands of people, Jews and Arabs, is absolutely disgusting, and it makes me really mad because like we're human beings. Human beings don't really learn from their past, which is frustrating. But going back to the deal itself. Um, Me personally, like with family in Eretz Yisrael, it's bittersweet. Obviously, for the reasons you guys said, I've heard so many varying like opinions from different people, from experts, from religious Jews, from secular Jews, from everyone. Everyone's frustrated. It's bittersweet because we love the hostages that they're come back home. The Khatufim, are back home and they're with their mother's arms. And like just now, one of my parents was crying for the fact that one of the that such a touching moment when she was you know reunited with her mother. So it is very emotional going through it, and it's also very it's not for no reason, obviously, uh with uh with all the criminals being released out into the West Bank and Gaza itself. It's very hard to for people to wrap their heads around the fact that, three people were traded for 90 criminals and terrorists. But where I want to go back to the what's happening, what happened this week with this week's parasha, which was Exodus, and then now the story of Exodus is happening in the next three parashas. So it's no coincidence that this deal happened during Exodus and Vaira and the parashas that are happening this week. It's no coincidence that we have Jews being freed from captivity when the slaves in Mitzrayim were held and freed by Moshe Rabbeinu. And me personally, the moment the hostages were released, I was visiting New York City and I was at the Rebbe's Ohel paying my respects with a bunch of Jews on a conference. And it was very moving watching everybody on their phones. Like some people were live streaming it, seeing what they could see, catching the first glimpse of the hostages as they were released in Gaza. And it was very emotional for some people. People were writing their letters, and it was very, very hard for people to focus, especially in the conference when that was happening. But it's not a coincidence in my opinion. These things happen for a reason. I'm also an optimist, and I believe that there are good things to come from this deal, even though there are many, many bad things that could potentially happen. But I'm still optimistic. I'm happy that they're home, and I hope the war ends soon. That's my biggest hope.
And Ben, I think you make a good point, and it's a good reminder for us. Why is this happening now? And at the end of the day, we don't influence the world leaders who are making these decisions to bring these people home or not. All we can send is our prayers and ask Hashem that, Hashem should influence the world leaders to look favorably upon our people. And that's where we have control. And so, um, no matter the situation, whether we agree with the hostage deal or not and all the details of it, we have to be happy knowing that God's carrying out his will and it's perfect. And what we're seeing when families come home and they're hugging and reuniting, that's a reflection of the will of the divine. So that's something to appreciate in and of itself.
100%. Like literally end of the day, the only thing we can really say in this situation is Baruch Hashem. Like thank God. That's all we can say. And speaking of our leaders um doing right by us, or at least trying to, um big week this week because the whole inauguration of Donald Trump has occurred and he got right to work signing a whole bunch of executive orders and he actually signed a few that were pretty pro-Israel, which were pretty cool. Like what do you guys think about that?
No, I wanted to ask Yehuda specifically. Has semester started, by the way? Because it relates to the presidential stuff. But
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we started last week, beginning of last week.
okay, yeah. Because some of the orders that he's signing or he is going to sign relate to the protests themselves. I noticed that after going back to Colombia's disruption, I noticed that Colombia issued a statement condemning what happened, which they never did in the 15 months since October 7th, which in itself is very indicative of the new administration. The administration itself specifically said we are going to clamp down on universities that do not conform to the regulations and who do not crack down on anti-Semitism. And additionally, I don't know if the executive order has been signed, but Marco Rubio, the new secretary, said that he is open to deporting foreign students that espouse support for terrorist organizations.
100%.
So I think that is what most affects the Yehuda and other college students because practically the ringleaders of these organizations uh, are going to either cease their activities or possibly face deportation for supporting Hamas. So I think that is a very good thing. We shouldn't, I believe in free speech, but I do not tolerate people who actively call for an intifada against their own students who are not they themselves US citizens. I believe that it's a privilege to live and learn in this country. And if you wish death upon your fellow students, you should be kicked out. That is my opinion, and it's unwavering. That being said, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it's like free speech. Even in the free speech amendment itself, it's written in law that things like obscenity, fighting words, threats of violence, they don't count as free speech. And so many of these situations going on campus, like, were like, I mean, last year, October 7th happened, and that's when pretty much all the violence started. And that year, I was learning constitutional law, and in constitutional law, we covered the free speech amendment and the exceptions that go behind it. And when you like see it like so simply in class and then you see everything that's going on and no one's saying anything about it, it's actually mind-boggling that it got to this point where we had to wait until now that these people were being held accountable for the things they were saying and the things they were threatening. But now it's finally happening, thanks to our new government, B'ezrat Hashem, it'll, like God willing, it'll only be good for us for the next 4 years and God willing for the rest of our lives, but 4 years at a time.
I just
Um,
want to say, like, make it clear, deportations only happen to people who are on student visas, not if they're like a U.S. citizen.
No, no.
yeah,
As a U.S. citizen, I'm a lawyer. I know this. As a U.S. citizen, you will never be deported,
Yeah.
ever.
I'm like a semester away. I don't know why we gotta belittle, but yeah,
Yeah, almost there, almost there. Just one insanely difficult California bar exam. Just one. Don't worry, no pressure.
yeah,
I'm in the same boat. I have one complicated, hard certification test for teaching.
God willing.
You'll be a great teacher, Sammy. Don't worry.
Um,
Actually, I want to get back to Yehuda because I mean, Yehuda, I'm curious. Like, I mean, in general, was there like anything you saw this week within like, your own community at CU Boulder or the Jewish community as a whole? Like, was there anything you saw specifically that was like a huge highlight for you this week?
Honestly, it's been an ordinary week.
Yeah.
Nothing out of the ordinary, and that's good. I was expecting a lot more outrage on campus, and I was delightfully surprised when, nothing absurd or unexpected happened. So, I wish I could give you a good story, but I really got nothing.
That's the best story you can give. That's
Yeah.
I think one more thing that I think he really did, two things. One, he finally put Houthis as a terrorist organization going to the U.S. terror list, which is about damn time.
Yeah.
If people know for months now, they've been shooting missiles at Israel.
Yeah. Yeah. The group that has Death to America, Death to Israel, and Curse the Jews on their flag is was not a terrorist organization until
To,
now.
to, to
That's
now.
amazing. Yeah.
And
insane.
another thing is the sanctioning the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, which, like
Yeah.
BB or not like BB, the way it's being tried is not a fair or just situation.
Yeah, no, I got an A in international criminal law. It was the class was literally about the ICC. It's completely corrupt. Like the court is entirely corrupt. Like
The
it's
fact that
insane.
the head of ICC is now the leader of Lebanon,
Mhm. Bernie
just
Sanders, if you know, you know. Bernie Sanders.
Oh man. But it's also I gotta say it's like it was also like bringing back up Marco Rubio. I don't know if you guys saw that video of him like basically like the pro-Palestinian protester tried like confronting him and then he went up to her camera and he was like, "Are you recording this? Hamas is a terrorist organization. They deserve to be every single one of them deserve to be 6 feet under." Like Hamas he's talking about. Like ever since I saw that video, I was like, I love this guy. He's
yeah.
good for us.
I know how it's saying Hamas and not
Yeah,
other.
he keeps it to
Yeah, no,
he's
it's
a very
good.
classy guy.
No.
Very
Yeah,
classy.
it's just like saying like this is the war against Hamas.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
classy.
it's good.
But
So yeah, going back to more Israel news, more positive news. I think like going forward on campuses will be a lot better. But they announced the breaking news today was they announced the Eurovision contestant for today. What's her name, Sammy?
Yuval Raphael,
mm,
Yeah,
which is
she,
very interesting, is she was a Nova Festival survivor. So we will literally be dancing again.
wonderful. It's
good.
Jew of the week. Calling
We
it.
like
Awesome.
we like to always end with something positive. Tikva, hope. I
For
hope we get another bingo this year with the Eurovision.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Um, yeah, I mean it's like I kind of want to end off from like something from our guests. Like in Yehuda, it's like, is there like a word of wisdom or like something positive you want to like end us off on? Uh,
Sure. I mean, I'll share some words that I shared at the SSI conference when we received Chapter of the Year award. I thought about it kind of on the spot and asked myself, well, we've been around for a year. Why did we get this award? Not that I didn't think we, put in hard work, but I realized that, and this could be a message for everyone on college campuses right now. The reason we won Chapter of the Year, in my opinion, wasn't from any of the Israel advocacy work we were doing. It's precisely because we were looking to impact just one more Jewish student who was maybe looking for a drop of hope, a drop of light in a very difficult time with a lot of darkness in the world. And if bringing them into a community like SSI or inviting them to a Shabbat dinner was the way to do so, then they felt seen, they felt loved, they felt like they were uh, brought back as a stray piece reunited with their collective Jewish soul. And that's kind of the image I've carried in my head through my time with SSI and involved in my Jewish community here. It's how can I reunite more pieces of our people? And I think that's something we can all carry as a vision for ourselves when we interact with one another on a day-to-day basis. You know, how can we put those pieces together in a world that's often has the illusion of being broken? So that's what I got for you guys.
Baruch and Bezrat Hashem will all stay united. Yehuda, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate having you and listening to your story. And, to the people watching at home, thank you guys for watching. If you guys like this episode, make sure to like this episode on YouTube and Spotify and subscribe. If you guys, want to see what's going on with the show next, follow us on Instagram at United Jewish Podcast. And, you know, if you want to see what's coming on next, if you want to come on the show, if you got anything you want to talk about, like feel free, our DMs. We have an open door policy. Thank you all for watching. And oh yeah, we got to plug Yehuda too. It's like if you guys want to see what's going on with Yehuda and his podcast, definitely follow that. The link is going to be down below. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Really appreciate it. Have a great night.